Hi, Grandma. It's me, Runtaru. Hi, miss you. Daddy said to me when you're right now. Yes, I'm trying to be a good little boy. Miss you, love you, babe. That's okay, do your diggies. Hi, baby. You do your diggies? That's a good little boy. Hi, baby. Hi, baby. That's a good little boy. Hi, baby. That's a good little boy. Wow, there's a good little boy.
So, all of those end-of-match procedures that you guys saw yesterday, the double loss, the ability to, not complete a game, all of that fun fancy stuff.
Sweetie,
or underneath the rules,
that's a good little boy.
the double loss.
Wow, that's a good little boy.
Wow. Kind of talking about,
Boy.
under point 3,
Hi, baby. Did you do a poopy? Did you do a poopy?
The current end-of-match procedures with that 15-minute timer does in fact
Did you do a poopy?
if you've won one game and you're going into game 2,
Hi, baby. What you
and
doing?
time is called and it is, awarded as a double loss to both players, your first game
Hi,
win
baby.
does not matter in that sense. That is the worst part of the policy. If Konami would find a way to somehow fix that double loss scenario, I think a lot of the rest of the policies from that document, the 15-minute timer is good.
Hi, baby.
The policy invalidates life point burden cards.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the most impactful discussions to be had with this list.
I see you.
Right now,
I see you,
Heavy Borger,
Runtaru.
Gaga Cowboy, all of these cards that you can bring in that give you the ability to, time's called, end of the phase, I'm going to go ahead and activate Heavy Borger or activate Gaga Cowboy, and I'm going to burn you for that extra damage. Right now, those cards are a little bit broken and unfair, but that's underneath current time policy. If Konami does adapt and transition that world's policy as a straight one-to-one, we can finally bring back Lacrima, the Scarlful fusion thing of Beansmith, because the burn damage and the pinging that got that card banned on our side of the game will not matter. I need to emphasize that again. It does not matter. Now, Heavy Borger, on the other hand, there's been a lot of discussion over the last couple of days surrounding the old policy of, do we need to actually take Borger out back and blow it up? This card is it in its current state, pay more than $1,500 on my turn, $1,500 on your turn. That's 3K. Slap a snow devil back behind that. You're burning your opponent for over 4,000 life points passively in 2 turns. If your opponent activated Solemn Judgment, they're dead. That's kind of a problem, but once again, on a straight transition of policy, there's that. I know everybody's kind of
Hi, baby, did you do a spray now. Did you do a spray?
All of the thoughts and all of the discussion.
Did you just do a spray?
That changed yesterday. And it's interesting to read a lot of the opinions that the general player base had. A lot of the player base, a lot of the higher up players, really read a lot of positive on this. I think I like 15-minute rounds. I like invalidating the life point side of things because it means that people will no longer be able to stall. The inevitability is the scumbaggery that comes with this. I mean, it's just not a discussion without looking at, somebody in the TCG scumbag somebody else. It's gonna happen every other gosh darn time, man. The TCG, at least NA, has become so notorious for the scumbaggery that I don't blame Konami for having to find an alternative to try to change these rules because your player base is just some of the most toxic you can have. Adapting things towards the double loss category is a little bit rough, but also at the same time, it's a welcoming change. I think that's another thing to think about. That's another hilarious thing too. To the amount of negativity that I was reading about these
baby. Hi, sweet baby. Hi, sweet baby.
Play at an appropriate pace.
What's a sweet
Two,
baby?
you think that your opponent is slow playing you. You are now forced to call a judge.
That's a good little baby.
I am so
Well,
sick
did you do
of
it,
listening to people go, well, I got
Did you do it, Binky?
okay, well, did you call over a judge to,
That was
you know,
good.
take care of it? They're like, no,
Good boy.
I didn't. And it's like, so that has been a real major concern online of mine, is just how much people cry about slow play, yet they don't call over a judge to investigate the you know, topic at hand. A little bit more passive, so seeing a shortage on these
What you doing, baby?
is interesting. Now we had 1,047 K917 Izuna and 1,040 copies of K9 Lupus. Alright, so K9 cards should be very readily available based on the numbers you're seeing here. Now, Yummy, on the other hand, we had 1,041 copies of Yummy Snatchy, 1,047 copies of the Lollipop, and 1,044 copies of
boy.
which wraps us up to 1,030 copies of Kelsey. I love the fact that we are short like 13 copies of the Yummy Monster out here. I think that's actually an interesting thing to say.
Give me a Rundy.
Now your ultras, I'll be honest with you guys. Honestly, looking at the structure
My
of these,
Rundy.
seeing Draco being shorted, a little bit surprising, to say the least. Seeing the K9 stuff being very widely available is acceptable. That's what we want to see. We want everybody to be able to get their hands on the K9 cards. We want this stuff to be in circulation. We want everybody to feel hungry. Now, let's talk about collector's rares. Collector's rares is where it kind of gets a little bit interesting in the fine print of things. Now, there were 63 copies of Draco Tail inserter. Find had 63 copies of first collector's rare. And we also had 67 copies of Malulu. And then we had 67 copies of Arthalion. It appears that in the Draco Tail department, we just printed larger copies of these more available.
That's a good boy.
Okay, well, good news. If you want to collect a rare
Good boy, Randy.
you're not going to have any problem doing so, because that tells me that they did an absolute good job at having these be available. Good job, Konami.
That's a good boy.
This is
Hi, baby, come
Izuna not looking too high here. Izuna had 52.
Good boy.
Which, keep in mind that Izuna is going to be the one that does a lot of the dumping. She's the one that drops Lupus into the graveyard. Speaking of Lupus,
Good boy.
50 copies of Lupus pulled out of 208 cases. What is that? 1 out of every 4 cases has a collector's rare Lupus in it.
That's a good
Pretty close to it based on numbers here. So I don't
baby.
hate that ratio either, because Lupus is a 1.
Hi,
If
baby.
you are pulling too many of those, I can
That's a
understand
good
that you would
boy.
get a little bit frustrated.
Hi,
Now your
baby.
Yummy department here.
Well, that's a good little boy.
52 snacks.
Look at that sweet boy.
47 lollipops.
Look at that sweet
48
boy.
baggies of cookie. And
Look at that
Cubs
cutie.
actually had
Look at that
60 of the collectors.
Who's that cutie patootie? That's you,
And
Hunty.
abnormality of things to see.
That's a
That our
good boy.
variance upward swing
that's a
actually
good little
rewarded
boy.
us in the
Look at that sweet
department of Cubs.
Come here, baby.
Sure.
Come here, sweet.
Now, those were your main archival things.
Wow,
Now,
that's a
there's
good
some
little
other ones
boy.
that weren't available in higher
Oh,
rarity
that's a good
that
little
did
boy.
get the collector. One of
Just
those
a good
being the
sweet
Rahu
little
Rainbow
whale.
Tail, which is going to be your spell card that allows you to fuse out of the deck. There were
Look at that sweet boy.
57 of those pulled. That is going to be one that people are going
You're
to
sweet,
want as
Randy.
a 3 of. It pretty much is fulfilling the
Good.
same role
Aw,
that the
sweet
choice
boy.
limited rarities that we saw in
There's a
Malice,
good
where
boy.
Draco Tail players are going to go, well, if I
Good,
want to
sweet
upgrade my
boy.
Draco Tail stuff,
I love
I'm
you.
going to have to go get.
People are opting to play the Masquerade package. Some people are opting to play the Honor Art package. You're gonna see some Nash Knight shenanigans because this deck is really good at pumping out rank 5s. Ash Blossom, K-Knight package, and some Charmies and maybe some Pistules. This is like, I think this is a realistic way to play the deck in TCG. This is how I feel about K-Knight. Is like I feel K-Knight as its own deck is not that strong. As of now, it gets more support in the future in Doom of Dimension. We've already seen some new cards for Doom of Dimension. The deck is going to be good. But for now, it's going to be a hybrid deck for the most part. It is an engine that you're going to see in other decks. The most prevalent ones are going to be Vanquish Soul and Crystron. And in those decks, it's going to put those decks over the top. I think with this engine, I think both of those decks are going to be very meta relevant. This is what you're going to expect. You're going to expect this deck to have basically TLDR. It adds a strong hand trap to these decks if you play the K-Knight engine, and it makes these decks stronger at playing through hand traps when they're going first. They're going to make stronger end boards when going first because they sometimes just have random extension through hand traps with Izuna and Case for King.
Look at those Binkies. Where'd you go? There you are. Hi, baby. Where'd you go, boy? Where'd you go, boy? Wow. That's a good boy. Wow. Look at that, baby. Look at that, baby.
Second. With that information, you're trying to optimize your deck to have the best chances. It's hand in hand, right? The main and the side deck always go hand in hand. You need the right number of cards to take out and cards to take in, and you want to cover for problems. So let's take a look here. We've got 6 more Charmies in the main deck, which was a call to cover for Mitsurugi Raizel, as well as the Golden Lockbird. These are relatively targeted deck choices, which means that the main deck is already pretty decked out for the format and for specific top tier decks in the format. So the side deck is going to have to cover for the decks that we are not covering with the main deck yet. And that means we're going to need answers for decks that aren't Mitsurugi Raizel. And it also means we're going to need ways to take out these Charmies or the Golden Lockbird in scenarios where they aren't good. Like whenever we're going first, we're going to have to take out the Charmies, and whenever Golden Lockbird or other tech cards are not great in the matchup, we're going to have to take those out as well. Just a first glance of which kind of cards we're definitely going to have solutions for inside. So the first thing you want to do when finding cards for your side deck is finding the decks that you want the side cards for. So obviously, I mean, this is obvious, but this is where you need to be aware of the format in some way, shape, or form. And this can differ sometimes depending on what tournament you're even trying to attend. You know, it's a lot easier to maybe have an overview of what's being played at your locals, and it sometimes is a lot different from what's being played at big tournaments. You know, it's, of course, it would be good to have something in your side deck or the best deck in the format, but if no one's playing that deck at your locals, then essentially you're wasting those side deck slots as well. But in general, if I'm assuming you're preparing for a big tournament where you're going to face the meta, then I like to look at it in 3 different categories, basically. Where category 1 is decks that you definitely have to expect facing. These are the top meta decks. These are the decks that you want to have a very good game plan against and even maybe side some very specific cards for. The second category would be decks that are less popular and you can realistically play against these decks, but not as often, and you might even go an entire tournament even with a deep is decks that are not popular enough to realistically prepare a side deck specifically for them at all. It's like rogue decks that even if you end up facing them, it's probably just once in an entire tournament. And these decks
Good boy.
all together, but the way I like to
That's a
go
good
about it
boy.
is you want to understand what these decks do, and you want to understand which cards in your side deck
Oh, that's a good little boy.
can maybe work in those matchups as well. So if there's
Be
a
careful,
card that you
baby.
put in
Don't
your
get
side
up
deck
there.
because
No,
it's
no,
good
baby.
against one of the top
Runty.
meta decks, it's also
Runty.
good against one of the rogue decks that's available. It covers some meta decks. So there's a point where you don't need to prepare for every single deck you might play because ultimately some of these decks are rogue decks for a
Hi,
reason, and
Runty.
it's more likely you can beat them
Hi,
without
Runty.
even siding specifically for them.
That's a good boy.
Alright, example time. Now that we've already established earlier what kind of cards you might have to take out in certain situations, we'll do more on that later. The decks we're trying to side for with this particular deck are definitely Malice and Mitsurugi. So those will be your category 1 decks, decks that we will probably not go a single tournament without facing.
Sweet boy.
Category 2 decks that we want a plan
Good
against,
boy.
but are not our main focus, include stuff like Ryziel variations, like Ryziel Heraldic, Mermail, Memento, Fiendsmith decks, Blue Eyes, Restaurant, and maybe Odeon. Those are the kind of decks that I would like to be prepared for, as well as pure Mitsurugi, of course, which is slightly different than Mitsurugi Rising. Everything else, I think, falls into category 3 of decks that it's nice to know what you can side against it, but you're not trying to side specifically for it. Looking at our example deck list here, this is a deck where, going first, I do not side out any engine cards in this Mitsurugi deck, because you really want to make sure that you can play. Luckily, I have the Mole Charmies here, so I have some room to side out cards going first, which we're going to talk about in a second, what I'm going to do in that scenario. But generally, in this deck, going first, I'll be taking out non-engine cards, and going second, I'll be taking out some engine. Might not be good in a certain matchup. If Rulia doesn't hit a certain matchup, I'm going to side it out. If Droll doesn't hit a certain matchup, I'll take it out. So on and so forth. You get the idea. That's basically how I work out the number of cards that I can remove from my deck, both going first or going second, by simply taking a look at my main deck and understanding.
No. Just did a tinky,
How
baby.
many cards do you even side? So now
Runty.
that we've established here for,
He just pee-peed on the
basically
blanket.
what's left is how many cards
He
you
just
can
did a
side
pee-pee.
matchup and how do you identify the card getting out
That was a
of
huge
your side deck.
tinky.
Since side deck space is so limited, you want to be
Runty.
very efficient.